It's Agille from Agile TV again at the Agile Development Practices and Better Software Conference West, Caesars Palace, Las Vegas. And right now I'm with David Bernstein. Hi, David.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so for those who are watching right now who might not know who you are, can you just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, certainly. I am a developer and have been for actually most of my life, like 30 years or something like that. And I got into, early on, about 23 years ago, into training developers. And so I've been doing a lot of training as well as developing and coaching. And I find that I love doing that. Most recently, what I've been focusing on is the Certified Scrum Developer Training. Okay. And this is new from the Scrum Alliance. It's really to support the developers in the practices to help build software incrementally. It really focuses on the XP practices like test-driven development, pair programming, architecture, design, those kind of things. The things that were not actually taught very much in the world that really help us be able to build software of high quality incrementally.
Okay, so you talk about Scrum Developers Certification course. Tell us a little bit more about that, because at the moment, I know in some organizations what they're doing in order to help their teams to better understand the Scrum or whatever they're using is they're sending them on Scrum Master courses. And you're talking about a Scrum Developer Certification course. What is that?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's actually quite a bit different than the Scrum Master course. Okay. The Scrum Master course focuses on the process, the Scrum process, correct, the framework and all. And it's very helpful because managing software projects is really different than managing other kinds of projects. So a lot of people who aren't familiar with the unique nature of software find that it's really valuable to be able to have some extra tools in their toolkit. And the Scrum framework is a very minimal set of tools, but it's there to sort of help and support. It turns out that the way we actually write software, the way we actually build software is different as well when we're doing Agile. And the reason for that is that it brings up a whole bunch of different concerns that probably, well, maybe it existed in a waterfall environment, but we didn't really see it. In waterfall, as long as you wrote to the spec, whether the customer really wanted it or not, doesn't matter. You fulfilled your piece of it. In Agile, we say, it's not enough. We want to make sure they're happy. We want to make sure that we're delivering quality and we're delivering value to them. And so we go with lots of feedback. That's the whole idea of iterative development, building in sprints, is to get that feedback every 2 weeks or whatever your cycle is. Well, that also means that we're going back into our code and we're changing it, or we're adding to it. Okay. And we have to be able to do that in a way that is efficient, that is effective. We can't be making a mess, because if we do, then suddenly it really pulls down our productivity. So I'm a huge advocate of quality in software, because I truly believe, and I've seen this hundreds of times in many, many different teams across many different kinds of development projects, that the stellar teams, the teams that are achieving huge, for lack of a better word, huge velocity, but really actually getting quality product out into the hands of their customers are focusing on quality. So that's kind of interesting. And the practices that we talk about in XP and other Agile practices are really also helping us focus on quality.
I mean, quality seems to be a common theme that's coming up quite a lot from the speakers. And from a developer's point of view, what type of techniques and strategies could you suggest? Because sometimes people think they're creating quality, but as we hear, it's not really quality. So what things could you recommend and suggest?
Oh, that's a great question. Because even the very notion of quality is fundamentally different in software, I believe, than it is in, if you go to a fine restaurant or if you buy a piece of fine furniture or something like that. And when I ask developers and I ask managers, what's quality in software? They tell me things like, well, it should run fast, it should be bug-free, it should do what the user wants. And all those things are good. But I would propose that those things are actually effects rather than causes. And that really when we look at the cause of quality, what we're really talking about is building software that's understandable, that's maintainable. What I'm talking about is understandable to the developers, the people who have to maintain it, and that's extendable. And if I had to give you one quality matrix, one thing that would say what is quality, I believe it's testability. So when your software is testable, it's of higher quality, actually. And I'm not actually referring to testing at this very moment.
Okay.
Testability is not about testing. It's actually about thinking about design differently. Because when you think about designing software that is testable, you realize that there are some practices that are impediments to doing that as a developer, and then there are some practices that support that. And it's interesting that there's this correlation between quality and testability. So that's one of the things that I have teams focus on and developers focus on is making code more testable.
Many people speak about quality and they tend to sometimes look at it from purely a bugs perspective, number of bugs. Is that just the only measurement of quality, or is it also about making sure that we're delivering the right product to the customer at the right level of quality as well?
Yeah, I think there's clearly a lot more than just bugs, because we want to be able to change our code in the future as well. So, and that's a little bit harder to quantify and to measure. But if you think about it in life, the most important things and most wonderful things in life are not really that measurable. So I'm not saying that, I think that the idea that if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist is not necessarily the best idea in software, because we're learning stuff. And the way I would couch it is, I would say that there's two things that we need to do as developers and in development projects. We need to do the right thing. We need to do what the customer wants. We need to do what's in the specification, because we must. That's absolutely critical. We can't build something that they didn't ask for and expect them to be happy.
Yeah, I was going to say, people do, but you're right.
Well, we want our
to be happy,
happy.
Of course we do.
But then we have to not just build the right thing, but we need to build the thing right. Mm. And doing that is about focusing on quality, focusing on engineering practices that support writing extendable code. And these things are not widely known. Outside of the Agile community, such practices are not really talked about, I notice. We really have like a 20-year-old mentality in how to build software in a lot of places that I visit. And I think Agile is that next step to bring us into this, into this next stage of development.
Okay. Now, I know you mentioned a little bit about test-driven development. Now, what would you say to some developers out there who might argue that they don't have the time to start doing test-driven development? What would you say to them that may encourage them or give them a different perspective as to why it might be in their best interest to consider that approach?
That's a great question. Because it's not exactly what it seems. People sometimes say to me, well, you're saying that for every production class, you need to write a test class, so it's twice as much code, right? And I say, oh, no. Because to fully exercise your production class requires like 3 or 4 times the amount of code. And they go, what? 4 times the amount of code? Well, there is an embedded assumption there. The assumption is that the limiting factor in software development is typing. And I would think that we all would disagree about that. I think that the limiting factor in software development oftentimes is technical debt. And technical debt happens when we try to rush sometimes. So focusing on quality, and the way I like to say it is, the way to increase your velocity tomorrow is to increase your quality today. And I know a lot of people that that's true for. In fact, I have a friend who's a professional chef, and he said to me once, I don't have time to make a mess, And he produces 300 plates a night. Mm. And if you look at his workstation and his apron and everything, it's spotless, even at the end of the night. Because he knows that if he makes a mess, it'll slow him down. And after all, shouldn't we be doing the same thing? Shouldn't we recognize that messes slow us down a lot faster than we ever anticipated? If let's say we're civil engineers instead of software engineers, and here we are in this beautiful building and all these columns, and I say, you know what, we're running behind, you're my foreman, we're running behind, and just these double columns, let's just get rid of them. Let's just do 1 column instead of 2. We'll save some money, we'll get done faster, everything will be great, right? And of course you probably would say to me, boss, that's not a very good idea. And not only that, but there are laws in place to prevent that from happening. If I did that as your foreman, I could probably get arrested, because we know, that is a risky behavior. So I think as developers, sometimes we know a lot more about what the code is than anyone else, really. And so part of our job, I think, as developers is to push back when requests are unreasonable. And push back by saying, well, this could be expensive for us in the future. This could wind up not being what we really would be in our best interest. And I don't think developers, and I've worked with thousands of them, I don't really think anyone that I've ever met is trying to write perfect code. It's not about that. We're not about geeking out and trying to, do the coolest whatever. We just think of things in a little bit different terms. So it is based upon, financial. Like we may say, well, I feel this is not the right approach, but what we're really saying, in management speak, is this is going to cost us a lot of money and be very risky. So maybe we don't use the right words, but we really do have the same intent.
Cool. I think that for a lot of developers and maybe business people out there right now, that will help them recognize that it's dangerous to build a false economy and that we should do the things that we need to do in order to ensure that we're not paying a bigger price later on down the line.
Yeah.
So
Can I share a few more things?
Sure, definitely.
One thing I love about software development is that it's very plastic. It's very much how we envision things. I've had the experience, and I'm sure a lot of developers have had the experience where, you're working on a problem and, you may be up to 10, 12, 20 pages of code, and then you come up with an insight and suddenly it collapses down to 3 pages of code. Because, suddenly you realize, oh, there's something, there's something there that is simpler, that you're uncovering and discovering some more elegant solution. And I love that about software development, and I think a lot of developers love that, is to find the essence of that problem and to be able to state it. So there's a huge amount of creativity in software development, and one of the things that I tend to share a lot with developers when I train and when I coach is the creative side of it. We're all very, very disciplined already, but being able to unleash that imagination, that right brain, oftentimes can help us tremendously in coming up with better designs and better approaches, and giving us more resources to do that. So that's a lot of fun too.
Thank you very much for your time and sharing that with us, and look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.